Welcome everybody to this week's Better Way Thursday workshop. We're excited that you're here, and this has been a topic that has been highly requested by a lot of you, so we know that this is going to be a fun and engaging conversation today. As you have questions, feel free to type them into the chat, and I can ask Kelly to answer them in real time, or if you want to go ahead and ask your question directly, just raise your hand so I can keep an eye out for you. Raise your virtual hand, your Zoom hand. And then we can take a pause and ask your question if it's something that's timely going along with what she's talking about right in the moment. Just a couple other announcements. We have some great Better Way Thursday workshops coming up over the next few weeks. Next week, I'm not exactly sure what we're having, but the week after that, we're having a presentation on public speaking and professional communication, which is going to be really great. And then 2 weeks after that, we're having Vanessa Quigley, who's the founder of Chatbooks, come and talk to us. So we've got some great speakers coming up in the next few weeks. But in the meantime, I'm just going to introduce Kelly. I don't like to read bios. I think they're super boring, and I want her to introduce herself. But I will just tell you, we've had Kelly come speak with us before. We've known each other. We go back a little ways, but she's a fantastic speaker and loves to talk about this topic of salary negotiation. So we're super excited. I'm just going to turn the time over to you, Kelly. You can introduce yourself and then just dive right in.
I love it. Well, thank you. Awesome. Well, I'm going to share my screen because I have my intro kind of baked into everything, but thanks so much for having me. I absolutely love this group. And like Robin said, we go way back. And so I'm grateful that I could come back and be a part of the group again and be able to speak again. This is a really fun topic. So I'm going to speak on taking the stress out of negotiation. So I'm going to walk you through kind of our agenda for the next 45 minutes. I want to leave time at the end for questions as well. Like Robin said, I'll answer questions as I go, as you have them, but we'll kind of start here. So kicking things off, agenda, I'll start with a little bit of an intro and a background. Then I want to dive into some current stats around negotiation, just so that we can feel and understand a little bit more of the effects of it. And then we're going to dive into negotiation basics, common mistakes, and I am going to spend a little bit of time on how we can rethink negotiation practices, because someone actually commented on, I believe, LinkedIn when Robin posted this topic, and it's something I actually strongly agree with. As much as we are negotiating right now and we need to have a bunch of these skills, I really do want to push companies to move into better patterns around what negotiation should be and what it shouldn't. So I'm going to lightly touch on that, and we'll dive into the Q&A after that. So a little bit about me. This is my fam, kind of starting there. Me and my partner, Heather, we have 2 little girls and our dog, Sarge. As you can see, we're a very serious family. Not so much, we're just a bunch of kids, honestly. Like, we love to adventure. We love to spend time together as a family. Our garage is full of mountain bikes, kayaks, paddle boards. We're a very adventure-focused family. I've been in Utah my whole life for quite a few years. In my 20s, I strongly considered leaving, wanted to kind of get out of Utah, like, oh, this may not be the right place for me. And as tech started to grow and I started to feel some of the change that people were really hungry for, I made an intentional decision to stay. And it was one of the best decisions of my life, because I absolutely love Utah. I love the national parks. I love how beautiful it is. I love my family, and it's where I grew up. And I love the people. Like, people are loving. They truly care about the people around them. And there is a big change happening in Utah. And so it's cool to be a part of that right now. And tech is a big part of that. So that's a little bit about me. Maybe I'm trying to think of like other quirky things. I definitely have a sugar addiction. Like, I've just leaned into it at this point. Like, I absolutely love treats. My favorite like treats at night are like gummy bears and Starburst. Like, I'm basically a child. So if you're like, that's just something I kind of lean into about myself, is I love to adventure and I love treats. So I go with it. Okay, so let's dive in. Current stats. I always like to start with data. I'm a product nerd. So starting with data is usually how I always kick off any presentation, any project. It's a great way to start so that you can understand the why a little bit more. So with stats around negotiation, they're definitely really, really interesting, kind of kicking things off in regards to demographic a little bit. The majority of women never negotiate with an employer offer over pay. It actually is more common for women to leave their current employer and go to a completely different company to try to get a salary bump than actually negotiating where they're at, which is interesting to think about like women actually like being willing to go to a completely different company, to a completely different job, than negotiate where they are. And then when they actually go to that new job and they find a new opportunity, they don't negotiate that salary either. So they're getting a bump, but they're still not getting the bump they should. And a lot of women aren't being paid what they should in their current position. So it's just creating this horrible circle effect. So that's one thing that's just like a pain point overall. Two, it's really interesting. We are still obviously have a pay gap. Pay gap right now kind of nationwide is around 82% of what women are earning to men. We obviously know that's lower for Utah and for many states. In the United States, it's actually much lower, and it's even lower for women of color. So we're still fighting that battle. Not negotiating right now is continuing to hurt that gap of pay. So that's why this is something I feel very strongly about. It's like, it's one of the levers we can pull to genuinely help with that gender pay gap. Another stat that this one blew my mind a little bit, I actually saw it like a month ago. By not negotiating at your current job and in the beginning specifically of your career as a woman, it's estimated now that you're actually losing about $1 million to $1.5 million in the lifetime of your career. I was like, holy shit, like that kind of money is exactly the kind of money that women then don't have to go into bigger opportunities like investing in companies, being able to have a type of savings that they can invest in other different financial opportunities ahead of them. So learning this quickly and at the beginning of your career of how to know what you're worth, to ask for what you're worth, can have very, very big financial effects on the rest of your career. And that's something I've personally felt. Another reason why I'm passionate about this, when I first started my career, was not making very much. I was just getting into my career, just graduated. And in my first 3 jobs, learned that all of my male coworkers were making substantially more than me. And it was purely because I didn't negotiate and they did. Now, philosophically, we will get into later that that's a problem with companies as well. That's not just on the applicant. But where we're at right now in the situation of the market and how most companies are still operating, negotiation is going to be key for you to get what you're worth until we can make more of that big change management with companies. Last stat, in most cases, companies expect you to negotiate. This is something that's very, very hard, especially for new grads, or if you're going into a new industry. We get scared. I just in this past month, I have worked with 3 different women on 3 different new opportunities. 2 were new grads. One was from BYU, one was from UVU. Both of them were like, hey, I got an offer. I'm so excited. I'm like, cool, send it over to me. We'll look at it. I'm like, don't accept on the phone. Just say thank you. Send it over to me. We'll talk about it. And they were like, well, why? I was like, you have to look at the offer first. And they were like, well, no, like, I don't want to lose the position. I don't want to lose the offer. I'm like, you won't. They just spent months, weeks, and a lot of money interviewing you, having multiple people in the company interview you. They're not going to walk away from offering you something that they just put a lot of time and effort into for a few days. Like, for you to negotiate back and to ask for a little bit of time to review the offer, companies are expecting you to negotiate, and they're not going to be upset that you negotiate. It's pretty standard practice. It's estimated about 84% of employers expect job applicants to negotiate. And in certain industries, that's even higher, especially in tech. So diving into actually negotiating, I want to spend the majority of the time here, and please feel free to ask questions as we go through, because there's many stages of negotiation. So we're going to walk through each piece of that. First one, so where do you start? I think it's so exciting when you start looking for another opportunity, or an opportunity comes up and you see that opportunity and you're like, okay, cool. the recruiter calls you back or somebody from the company calls you back and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be able to interview. This is going to be so great. One of the first things they'll ask you is what are your salary expectations? And so everybody always just kind of like gets nervous in the first moment of finding a new opportunity. And that's so scary, right? Because you're like, I don't know what I should be asking for. And I don't know the expectations of what I should be negotiating for, or how I should even set the expectations before I even start interviewing. So what I always do with any opportunity is if I am looking for a specific position, I make sure I know that market. I put a link in here, and I'll send out links to Robin as well of multiple places that you can actually do industry research that's specific to a position and the location you're in. I will say the location is becoming a little more volatile because of COVID and more remote companies. So I usually base my research off of Seattle and Boston. California in tech is like an anomaly. And then you have places like Utah that are starting to figure out what the base actually should be for tech in Utah, because we're still new and building out our tech scene. Seattle and Boston are really good benchmarks for doing research. So if I was looking for a director of product position, I always go and look at Seattle and Boston in a bunch of these different links that I'll share with you, and am able to see what the standard is. So that gives me an idea. I'm going in with education and knowledge around what I should be asking for. And then I always give the recruiter, the hiring manager, a range. I do not give them an exact number. It's just not a good practice, because usually if you give them an exact number, you can either count yourself out of a position if it's too high, or you're going to lose a lot of money if it's too low, because they're like, sweet, we're going to get this candidate for 30 grand less than we thought, or 20 grand less than we thought. Let's keep going. We can save money in our budget and still get somebody for this position. So go ahead.
I had a question come in the chat here, and this was related to the fear of negotiation, what you were just talking about with those students. Kelsey asked, is it common for a company to offer a position to a different applicant if you negotiate too high?
Usually they'll finish communicating with you. So and that's why usually the expectations are here at the recruitment level in the beginning, so they know if you're too high. So if you're applying for an opportunity, usually you'll talk to a recruiter or someone, and they'll say, what are your expectations? You give them those. If they're like, hey, we can't actually meet that, would you be comfortable with this? You can say yes or no, and then you keep going. Usually by the time you're in the negotiation where they've given you an offer, you're pretty close in knowing where you want to be. And so usually they won't just hurry and send it to somebody else. They'll make sure they finish talking with you, negotiating with you. And if it doesn't work out, then you'll say, hey, this isn't going to work out. And they'll go to the next applicant in line.
Thank you so much. I love that. That's an issue that came up last week. We were talking about just interviewing, and we were talking about the idea that if you're way out of line, like your salary expectations are totally not aligned at all with what's available for the position, you're wasting time, right? To go through all this process. Totally. But doing that range at the beginning is great. But then after they've made the investment in you and they've actually made you an offer, they're not just going to, if you ask for more, they're not just going to turn around and say, oh, forget it, right? You have a chance to negotiate and be part of this conversation. I love that.
100%. I've done that with the last 4 companies that I've been at. Is I set expectation, they've come in around that expectation, and I've negotiated all of them, and I've gotten anywhere from 10 to 30% more of what I was offered, just because I was able to look at the full offer, which we'll talk through. But yeah, I didn't lose any of those positions, and it wasn't negative in any way. It was very positive interactions. Any other questions around that, or any other questions that came in? Okay. No, great question, because yeah, it starts here. This is why I highlight this of setting those expectations at the beginning, so that when you do get to the actual negotiation, the recruiter and hiring manager and company already know what your expectations are, and you know what theirs are. And it's okay to ask. Like, I've done that in a few situations where I've applied for a position. The recruiter's like, hey, we'd love to set up, an interview with you and get things going. And I'm like, awesome. It wasn't posted on the job description what your salary expectations are. Can you tell me what you're thinking for this position, what range you're in? so that I don't waste my time either. Because as much as I want the company to benefit and me to benefit, I don't want to waste their time or mine, like you said, Robin. So I've asked that, and they're like, oh, we're anticipating, this much between this much. I'm like, okay, I think we could probably work something out. I would love to talk to you more. And then we keep going. So this is a really key part of that, so that you feel like you both can have a positive negotiation back and forth, because you're in the same realm of where you expect to be pay wise. One of the big things that always gets asked is, what if they ask what I'm making now? And as a woman, that's very, very difficult, because for a majority of my career, and I think a lot of women, they're not being paid what they should be being paid. So if the way that I handle it, and everyone handles it differently, and you can Google this, there's so many different options. But when people ask me, what if they ask what I'm making now, if it's on market, I will tell them. If I feel like it's fair, and I say, I'm making between this much, or again, if I feel like it's on market and I feel like the company is within the range that I'm expecting, I tell them. If it's something that I'm being underpaid, I just say that. I say, I'm being underpaid for my role right now. What are your salary expectations for this role? And I put it back on the company, because I'm not going to give them a salary number that they feel like they're going to beat by 20%, when that's actually what I should be being paid in my role currently. And they would have given me quite a bit more for the new position. So recruiters are great. Honestly, for the most part, it is rare that I've run into sketchy recruiters. People are great at what they do. Just be transparent. We're all adults. I'm usually very upfront with everything. I like transparency. So I always say, hey, I'm underpaid by about this much. The market is about this. What are your expectations for this role based on the market? So I always bring it back to, what is the market asking for this position? Are you all within that range? Great, let's keep talking. And then you can keep it a very positive interaction, but you're being transparent, and you're not also adding to the issues that we're having with the gender pay gap. So then you go through all of your awesome interviewing, as you all already have done a class on, which is great. It's a great topic to talk through. You've done all of the interviews, you've talked with all the people, and the company calls you and they say, hey, we want to offer you the position. In tech, usually they'll do a verbal offer first. I just extended one yesterday to someone, got him on a Zoom call actually, to be able to talk and say, hey, I would love to offer you the position. Don't accept on the phone. It is the number one common mistake I run into. Most people are so excited that they just got such a really fun call, because it's fun, it's exciting when you get a new opportunity. And so most people are like, oh my gosh, yes, I definitely accept. I can't wait to join the team. Send me over the offer. Don't do that. Do not accept on the phone. I always thank them. I'm always like, thank you so much for the offer. I'm very excited about potentially joining the team. So they know that I'm genuinely interested. I appreciate the offer. I'm excited for the opportunity. And then I ask them, I say, can you send over the official offer? I would love to review it for a few days and get back to you. What is your timeline? Does 2 to 3 days work for you? So that I'm not being selfish of just I'll get back to you when I want. I'm giving them a good expectation. And I always make sure, if it is something that is a more pressing position, they're trying to get someone in, most companies will wait. They don't have a problem with a few days. It's not going to break the bank. It's not going to change the initiatives they're working on. I currently work for a company called Help Scout, and it's actually one of my favorite practices and beliefs that we have as a leadership team is, when you find the right person, you wait for the right person. So we've had many people, actually the person that I just hired, he was like, hey, I would like to give my current company a month notice. I'm on a really big project right now, and it's something I've put a lot of time into, and I care about my team. 2 weeks would not be sufficient. I would really like to come over in about 6 weeks. And I was like, that's fine. He was like, really? I'm like, yeah, we love what we're doing. We're going to continue working, but you coming over in 2 weeks versus 6 a month in our lifetime, is not that big of a deal. But his overall stress of his life, being able to settle the things that he needs to then bring his full self to work and full energy over to Help Scout, I'm going to wait a month for him. He's phenomenal. It took me a while to find the right person. He's the right person for the job. I'm going to wait for him. So set your timeline, let them know you'll get back to them. Most companies will wait. They're not going to be upset.
Kelly, we had another question come into the chat. So
Yeah.
is it possible to act too excited during that offer phone call, or on the other hand, not act excited enough and have either of those influence your offer? So figuring out that, how do you strike that right balance? And would, if you acted too excited or not excited enough, would that actually change the offer that they've already made?
No, I've never seen it affect the offer that they've made, kind of starting with that point. I've had people, you know, that are more like charismatic, you know, more excited when I've extended offers, or I've been more excited for some than others. It hasn't changed anything with the offer. It also depends on who you're talking to. Like when I accepted the offer at Help Scout, my hiring manager called me. She's someone that I have been wanting to work with my entire career. And it just finally lined up for us to work together. It was the right opportunity for me, for her, for the face of the company. And I was elated. I was like, Mariah, I'm so stoked that we finally get to work together. And so I was genuinely very excited about that one. Didn't change the offer. I still asked for them to send over the official offer. I still negotiated. So no, it's not going to change anything. I do always thank them. I always do give some level of happiness and excitement because they put a lot of work into deciding and interviewing and decided to ultimately extend you the offer. So I do always thank them and have some type of energy, but there have been ones that like I was interviewing at 3 or 4 companies and there's one that I'm like, oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Send me over the offer. I'll get back to you. But I'm really waiting to hear from this other one that I really wanted. So it's okay to be like genuine in your reaction as well. Sweet. Good question. Okay, so we're still here on the official offer. They've sent you over the offer. So you now have a written offer. That's very, very key. Sometimes with really small startups, especially I've noticed in Utah, sometimes they're like, oh yeah, we'll get it to you, but let's have you start. Don't do that. It's always get a written offer. There's no reason they can't get you one. So make sure that you have everything in writing. It's in a document. It's been sent to you. It's pretty standard practice now. I haven't run into that later in my career. It was more at the beginning of my career when tech was very, very new here in Utah, but always just make sure that they've sent you something written and that you have a document. This part is really, really key. So many people, they have the phone call, and if they're like, okay, thank you, send me over the offer, they get the offer, and the number one thing people do is they look at the salary. Of course you would. That's what's going to be coming home to you. It's how you're going to take care of your life, your bills, your family, be able to maybe do more fun things or save more money or pay things off, right? Like as much as people say money doesn't buy happiness, money can alleviate a lot of stress. So we always look at the salary. That's fine, but make sure that you're looking at the full offer. Look at long-term investments in the offer. Did they give you any public stock or RSUs for private companies? What does their 401k look like? Do they have one? Are they matching up to 3% or 1%? Are they not matching at all? Who is their health benefits through? Is it a legitimate company? Are you going to be paying for healthcare versus dental care? Do they have home office stipend versus education credit? Like your offer is not just your salary. There is so much more in an offer, especially in tech, that can actually be way more of a financial gain than just the salary you're bringing home. So the first thing that I tell people is like, pause, take a breath, be excited for a minute. Like I know most people in Utah don't drink, but like if you do, like pour a drink or like get a candy bar or something, like be excited like for a minute instead of just diving straight in and trying to analyze it. But look at the whole thing, pull up the whole document, and then pull up what you're currently at too. I always do that. I kind of do an analysis, and that's kind of going into this piece. Outline your gains and losses. I'm a very logical and analytical person, so I usually do this like in a document. I usually pull up a Google Doc and I have the offer from the new company, and I put salary, 401k, health, stock, other benefits, phone, I outline everything in a document. And then I pull up what I currently have. and for each of those. And I see which ones line up, because a lot of times what I found is at some companies, they may not have a childcare reimbursement, but then I can use that for my salary negotiation. So I can say, hey, I reviewed the full offer. Based on benefits that I have now with my current company, would you be able to do X amount higher than what they offered you? So you're going to be able to use these points that you're looking at for your responses as you're negotiating. A big one that comes up a lot is looking at stock and 401k and then childcare or like health benefits. A lot of tech companies will cover fully healthcare and dental now. You don't pay any out of pocket monthly, which is an amazing benefit. Some companies though do. So if you're going from a company where you're not paying anything for healthcare and they're also giving you money in an HSA, and then you go to a company that doesn't have that set up yet, they have healthcare, but it's not as good and you're not getting money in an HSA. All you need is one health problem to put you thousands of dollars into potential debt or money you have to pay out of pocket. Putting that $4,000 to $5,000 into your salary at your new job can make a big difference. So you're at least covering yourself if you don't have those things now. So look at what is the salary increase, and does that help with other areas that maybe I'm losing? Another thing that a lot of people do that is something that I always look at is pull up current tax brackets. That's a big thing that a lot of people don't realize, especially as they're getting into higher salaries, especially in tech. I absolutely love tech, and I appreciate that tech pays people very well, but it is very inflated compared to other markets in certain ways. And so if you're looking at tech and you need to keep an eye on those tax brackets to see if, oh my gosh, I just got this great increase in my salary. Well, now you're paying the government 5 to 7% more. So you're actually maybe not taking home what you thought you were going to be taking home. So just keep that in mind. That's something I always try to remind people of. And then again, we talked about like, are you giving up any benefits? What long-term investments am I getting? We're going to dive into this a little bit more in the presentation, but women don't think long-term enough. It's something I will stand on a soapbox every day and preach. Women think about right now, and they think about their kids and their family and what they need right now. And they'll think a little into the future, but you have to think long-term. What stock am I getting? What 401k matches am I getting? What will this open up for me salary-wise so that I can put money in different places to really have the flexibility that I want long-term? And then flexibility and happiness, that's maybe it's just the older that I get, the more I care about that. But I feel like the older I get, the more like kind of hippie vibes I go with of like peace, love, happiness. Like find a place that gives you flexibility and allows you to love what you do. Like I love product. I think it's a blast. At some companies, it has been way more stressful versus enjoyable. And I now, like the position I'm in now, I absolutely love it. I wake up and it's like I'm a kid. I get to have fun doing what I'm doing. So don't leave that off the table. Just because we're adults doesn't mean you shouldn't have fun. And we spend a lot of time at work. So consider that as you're looking at the offer. Then usually what I do once I have the offer, I've made my nerdy list of analyzing things. I always reach out to a few people I trust. I have 2 to 3, I have like my network, right, of people. And usually I reach out to 1 to 2 of them and say, hey, I got this offer. I'm feeling really good about it. This is what I think I'm going to negotiate. What do you think? And I have them review it and take a look at it as another person in tech. And they're like, oh, it seems like they're lowballing you here. Or actually, this seems like a really strong offer. Yeah, I think what you're going with sounds really good. I always gut check with somebody. Like, why not? So many times we act kind of funny about money of like, don't talk about money. But if it's with people that you're really close with and like you trust, why not talk about money? Usually the people that I talk to and have that like close circle of trust, they're the people that have helped me genuinely grow the most in my career. So they're actually invested in me and my growth as I'm invested in theirs. There's many, many people that send me things, and it's amazing to have that investment in each other.
Kelly, I want to hop in here with a quick comment. that
Yeah.
a lot of the women in tech moms are moving into this new industry, and they don't have friends in tech, and they don't, have a strong network of people who have already been in that area and could give them an expert opinion on the offer. And so I just want to let everybody know, we've had tech moms bring offers to us and say, what do you think? How's this balance? What do you look? And within your cohorts, as you're starting to get these entry-level jobs, reach out to your other tech moms, women like these. We can be one of those one or two people who you consult with and trust. So know that even though you're like, my spouse doesn't know how to do this, my family doesn't know how to do this, you've got a community of tech moms that can help you with this. Consult and discuss, I'm sure.
Yes, I love that. I love that so much. It's such a great avenue to start building that. And to your point, like, I mean, I'll give Robin like my information too, like Tech Moms is building a community of people in the space, people newly getting into the space, people trying to get into the space. So yes, like send that in. I'm so glad that you popped in with that, because that's a great, great avenue to get feedback. Okay, let's dive into the self-reflection. We talked about this just for a second, but long-term growth. As you're looking at your offer, I personally always go to the mountains after I get an offer. It's just a personal like practice of mine that when I'm considering another opportunity and a move, it will affect my whole life. Like going to a different company in a different position will affect my kids. It'll affect my partner. It'll affect my day-to-day. It'll affect how much money we have, what we can do. And I always step away from the world. I turn my phone off and I genuinely go into the mountains alone. And I spend time just thinking about recentering of, okay, Kelly, ultimately, where are you trying to go? Why are you trying to get there? What are your core pillars of what you're trying to accomplish? Are you excited about this opportunity? Why are you excited about it? What doors will this open? Who will you be working with? Like, take time to just kind of reflect on yourself and make sure it's a good fit for you. Make sure it's something that you can be excited about, that you want to do. I know sometimes we do get in a bind where it's like, nope, I just need a job, and that's okay too. That is totally okay. I have had many moments like that. I went through a divorce a couple of years ago, and I was very much in a situation of, yes, this is a good move and I'm excited about it, but also I need this job. So I'm going to look at the offer and make sure I negotiate and I'm smart, but this is something I need. And that was very different than, position sense that I've had a little more privilege with of, I don't necessarily need to take this one. I'm okay where I'm at. So it's okay too, if that needs to happen. But even in those situations, take a moment to just think about you and how you can be successful in any role that you're taking and be happy in it. So responding. Now you're to the point, you've self-reflected, you've looked at everything. Keep in mind that like they offered you the position, like they chose you over every other candidate and they want you. So you already have a little bit of an edge because they want you to come to the company. You don't have to justify all of your reasoning with personal details of why you're asking for more money. I focus on the salary and the benefits and the offer. Think about why the company's lucky to have you and what you're going to bring to them. And then think about if it's good for them too. There's been one or two offers that I've denied and that I didn't accept because I didn't feel like it was a good fit. After I thought through it more, it was like, no, I actually wouldn't be doing them a service because I'm not passionate about this. This isn't a product I can get behind. I can't come work for you. I'm sorry. But I didn't know that until I went through the full interview process and saw what I would be working on, who I would be working with. And it wasn't something I wanted to pursue. So it's okay to say no, for one. And keep in mind that, again, like it should be a good partnership that both people can benefit. I'm a strong believer of that. The company can benefit and you can benefit from a good partnership of accepting an offer. So I put together some templates because I know that's always helpful, especially as you're first getting into the field. So I put like a first response, second response, third response template. So I'll share this with Robin. And again, you should tweak this to your own voice, but this at least gets you a start. Usually first response, the goal of the first response is acknowledging you received the offer, thanking them and sending a time frame like you did on the call. So thanks so much for sending over the offer. The interview process was, great. I'm excited about possibly joining the team. I'll review the details and get back to you. If you feel like you need to set dates in there, like I'll get back to you by Friday, whenever, please do so. I usually will say like 1 to 2 days. Usually you kind of know, but you want to take a few days to review the offer. So that's all I send for the first response is you're acknowledging you got it. Thank you. And set expectations of when you'll come back with questions. Second response. So they've responded back and they're like, hey, no problem. Let us know if we can answer any questions for you. Then I've analyzed my offer. I then respond, say, hey, I reviewed the offer. I do have a few questions. There's always going to be questions. If there isn't, then like, I want to see it because I would be so impressed, but I always have questions with any offer I've received, even the very best companies that I've had a phenomenal experience with. So I always outline them. Like first, does the company offer a cell phone stipend? This was one that I think was a couple jobs ago. I'm like, this isn't a major issue, but I have one now with my current employer. So just asking because it wasn't called out in the offer. Another question that people get, like, can you provide me with more details around the health and dental plan? A lot of times companies will just say, oh yeah, we have Aetna PPO, or we have Aetna, whatever. Getting details around that is going to be pretty key because some of them are way better than others, as we all know. And then I always highlight things like a 401k. And so I'll say, hey, right now my current employer offers a high 401k match. Does the company have any plans to increase that match? So you can kind of ask questions on the different areas of the offer, but you'll notice here, there's nothing about salary. You're not asking anything about salary in this. The salary they just gave you. You're asking these questions to know what you can then negotiate for the salary point. So then your third response, or it could be, you could go back a few times where they send you the healthcare stuff and then they ask you questions about 401k and you can discuss that. Once you have all the answers you need, the goal of kind of your last response is to ask for adjustments in the offer based on the analysis you did and the answers to the questions. So I always, again, thank them, like, thanks so much for like the additional context, insights on all of my questions, focusing on other benefits instead of the phone stipend or whatever. It's great to hear you all have reevaluated benefits. Like you can kind of respond right to their questions. And then I always just say, after doing a final review of the offer, would you be able to do X amount for the annual salary? So I just state it, the amount that I feel like I should be at. I don't need to justify at that point. Yeah, Robin.
So Kelly, this is really interesting to me. I love these templates. Thank you so much. This is fantastic. But yeah. I have always imagined like salary negotiations happening in person, right? Like one-on-one, yeah, on the phone conversation or face-to-face conversation. So how common is it to actually do this part of asking for money in writing via an email versus doing it in person, either on the phone or face-to-face when we're in a world where we're doing face-to-face? I'd love to hear how often each type of situation happens.
Yeah, I would say for me, like email and tech has been the primary channel for me, asking and negotiating. I have done phone calls. I always do like the initial phone call, obviously, like with the hiring manager and them offering. I've only gotten on the phone 2 other times talking through a negotiation. And it's been one when I was moving into a senior position. And it was actually during when I was going through my divorce and was trying to figure out like, okay, what do I need to like be on my own, to find my own place? And so I had analyzed the whole thing and responded back to the hiring manager and was like, I would need to be at this amount. Can you do that amount, or could you give me more RSUs in the company so I could at least have long-term investment? And he was great. And he picked up the phone and he was like, hey, I saw your email. And he was like, he was like, I think I could do that base salary amount. He was like, but I'm wondering also, he was like, if we could talk about signing bonus that would allow you to purchase the stock in your old company, so you're not losing that. So like he was great about like finding what worked best for me. So if you do feel like you're running into a back and forth, it's more than okay, and can be even more beneficial to just say, hey, can we jump on a call? Some people really like the face-to-face or like voice-to-voice phone interaction, some people aren't able to put their words together quickly enough and know what they should be saying on the call. And so being able to write it out is helpful. But I've done both, honestly.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to ask, because I think women, well, I work with women all the time. So maybe it's true of everyone, but I know for women, like we're so scared to negotiate. It feels like we get all our hearts racing and all this other stuff. Yeah, and the idea, like I never even considered the idea that you could do your negotiation in an email and take out some of that emotion and the different fear, even though it's still scary to hit send, right? It's maybe not as saying
it's
something
not
out
as
loud.
scary.
So this is really, like, I think this is really empowering, the idea that say, well, we can do part of this in an email. We can open the conversation in writing, where we can get up the courage and just hit that send without having to say it, and then be ready to hop on the phone and follow it up. But this is a really cool phenomenon.
Oh, exactly. Like, especially with one of the women that I was working with last month on negotiating her salary, is she was fresh out of college. She was like, I think she was like 21, maybe 22. And she was like, I don't even know what I should say. Like, what if I'm on the phone and they say, could you do this amount? She was like, do I say yes? Or do I, like she was so nervous on like how to even articulate what she should, because she was still learning a lot of those soft skills around communication. Very effective, like is super intelligent woman, but just had never done it before. And so getting on typing that, her and I were then able to create a template, and I'd say, okay, what do you think of this? She's like, yeah, okay. And I was able to kind of coach her and help her see what she should be asking, so that future ones, usually like more senior roles, like my last role, I was on the phone with my hiring manager and was like, hey, this is what I would need to come over. This is how much equity I feel like I should have in the company based on this and this. And we talked through it, right, of other points that I wanted to bring up as a senior leader of the company. So it's definitely more phone calls the further up you get, but it's really nice at the beginning when you're still learning how to do this to just write it. Okay, we'll quickly go through. I know we're coming up on time here. We'll go through, this is kind of the tail end of it, but common mistakes. And we've highlighted a few of these, but not negotiating at all, as we've talked about, is the biggest mistake that people make. So again, negotiate. People expect you to negotiate. Focusing on just the salary, we went over that. Do not just focus on the salary number. Some of the biggest gains that I've seen in my career have been from stock. And actually from 401k. Some companies have amazing matches on 401ks. I've been at ones where it was like between 4 to 6%. And it was like, oh my gosh, like the amount of long-term like savings that I'm making with this position is huge. Don't take that lightly. Those can be very, very big gains that can help you much further along than just a salary number. Again, make sure you do research. So many people go into negotiating not knowing what they should ask for. And so they see a number that they've never seen before. And I did that at one of my first, it was probably like, I think my second job, once I really found the industry I wanted to be in and the product world I wanted to be in. I saw a number I'd never seen. And I was like, oh my gosh, I never thought I could even remotely make this in my life. I grew up very poor. My parents are amazing, but like we were very, very poor. And so when I saw that number, I was like, yes. And I didn't negotiate. And other people on my team were making more purely because they negotiated. So do your research, know what you're worth for that position in the industry. And again, time. Don't rush things. It's a very big decision. So many times we just think of it as a job, but I don't know, I've had like a major, like a mental shift in the past, probably like 5 to 10 years. Like a job is about people. It's not actually about the job. It's about the people you're working with, how it affects your life, how you're affecting theirs. You're spending the majority of your time at work and in your bed. So buy a comfy mattress and love who you work with. Like you need to like sleep well and enjoy what you're doing. So don't make a hasty decision. Take time to really think about it. It's okay to like breathe and think about what you want to do. Let's see, position. Yeah. Some of the other mistakes a lot of people make, I feel like, is again, not knowing their biggest like position in the market. Also looking at timing. They decline an offer too quickly. If they see a number that they're not happy with, they're like, oh, this isn't going to work out. I'm just going to decline it. you most likely could work through it. And even there actually has been a few of my jobs, I think, well, maybe one, there was one job that I actually took a little bit of a lower salary because it was a company that I wanted to get in with, and they gave me a lot more stock. And I knew there was an opportunity coming up soon that I could move into the position I wanted to, but I needed to get in the door, and it was the right move for me. I wouldn't do that every time. I don't think it's smart to do, but sometimes based on other parts of the offer they were giving me, it was worth it. And again, the start date, make sure the start date works for you. Again, timing. And then again, going back to like, don't verbally accept until you look at the whole offer. I just always drill that in because it's something that happens all the time. And then these are pondering questions. They're kind of the main ones that I like to look at for like career advancement of like, where am I ultimately trying to go? Is this position going to get me there? Is this a good strategic step? If it's not, then why are you considering it? If it is because I need a job, that's okay. If it's something that you're like, nope, this is going to help me build skills so that I can get here, that's okay too. Yeah.
Kelly, that comes up a question that just came up in the chat. Since it's tough to get into tech as a junior, specifically a junior developer, since you're so lacking in real world experience, how would you balance feeling of desperation just to get in with getting a fair offer? Like, how do you find that right balance?
Yes. Get in. That's my personal opinion. Like, obviously, like, still have them pay you what you're worth for that role. But at the beginning of my career, I actually started in a sales position. Then I went into a customer success position, and then I went into account management. And then I found like more into content marketing, digital marketing, and that helped me understand product management. So there was many positions that like a few of them were just to get into the company. Some of them were to help me build skills because I didn't know what I wanted to do yet. And then other ones were like, okay, this isn't the position I want, but they offer the position I want and I know I can go get it. So I'm going to take a different position to get me in the door. Like, very smart, because you're still building skills and you're building your resume. That's not bad to do in any way.
Kelly, I love that we could have you speak like about 20 different topics with all the jobs that you've had. Like, it's so great. But one of the things that you said on that last slide, when you told the story about taking a job, taking a pay because you just needed the job right then. And I love that's okay if you've done that. Like, we've got women I know in our organization who've taken a job just to get into tech. It's a little bit lower, but then the power that you gave us at the beginning of this conversation to say, I'm currently being underpaid. One of the reasons why not negotiating for that first job can have an effect over your lifetime is you keep being underpaid because you base your next pay on what you were making last time. But by saying, I'm currently underpaid, so I need to get up to market. So if we have tech moms who took that first job, you know, knowing that they're not maybe getting what they should be or whatever, that they don't have to be stuck in that track for long term. 100%. I love that.
Yes, 100%. Like, being fully transparent, I was probably in 3 positions where I was underpaid, and probably for about 10 years of my career, maybe more like 5. I was under market and not being paid what I was worth. And I just kept focusing on the skills that I needed to build, that I was like, okay, I'm going to keep negotiating. I'm going to keep building the skills I need. And now in the last probably 3 positions I've had, I'm being paid what I should be being paid. And it's very much opened because I kept building and keep building relationships and skills. It now has led me to a point in my career where I have a very different type of network and connections and opportunities in front of me that I did not have at the beginning of my career, where I was underpaid and needed to take some jobs just to build skills. But now I'm going after jobs that are in my industry, what I want, at the price point that I want, with the people that I want. But it takes time to get there. And it's okay to have to take some jobs that you're like, this isn't my dream. Like, this isn't like the ultimate job that I want, right? It doesn't just happen. And it can be really frustrating, and that's okay. Like, there was many times where I was like, why the hell am I doing this job when this is just paying for childcare? Like, it's like, but this, I won't be making this much my whole life. I'm making this much now. And yes, it's basically just paying for childcare and our bills. But now it has led me into positions that have given me much more freedom financially. Robin, we could spend like a whole time talking about rethinking negotiation on the company side. If that's something that we feel like is beneficial to tech moms and stuff, I would love to like speak on that. But high level, really, Help Scout is one of the reasons I went to Help Scout. It's the company I'm currently at, is because they're a B Corp, and they're genuinely focused on equality across the board, but overall, even more equality of pay. It's the first company that I've been with that has public pay bands and pay levels. So at any point you can go into the company pay document and see, okay, a product manager makes in this level, a customer success team makes in this level. You're paid for the work that you're doing and the skills that you have. You bring your full self to work. I wasn't allowed to negotiate at Help Scout. They said, this is what we're offering for this position because we've done a full analysis of the market. It's above market. If that doesn't work for you, we totally understand. We would love to interview you, but this is what we will pay you. And it was very mind-blowing. I was like, wait, I don't understand. I am a woman and I finally figured out how to negotiate and get what I'm worth. And now you're telling me not to. And I got on the phone with the hiring manager and I was like, I am struggling with this. And she was like, yeah. And she was like, well, here's the number. And I was like, oh, I don't need to negotiate. This is great. Finally, companies are not looking at my gender or my sexual orientation. They are looking at, this woman is qualified to do this position and will do great with the company. So will this person. We don't care. We care that you are coming and bringing your skills to the job, benefiting the company. We're helping you. We care about you. You care about us. Here's what we'll pay you. Phenomenal. It takes so many issues out of the equation. So this is something that I really hope more companies will continue to do. And I've been talking with many companies about this, of how they can make this happen, but it does make a very big difference. Sweet.
All right. Well, we've been asking questions throughout. Great questions, everybody. Okay. And yes. Kelly, this is a fantastic presentation. I love everything you said, but if you do have other questions, put them in the chat, or feel free to just unmute yourself now. Do you want to stop sharing your screen and we can just go back to a thing and see if people want to. I need to change my view so I could see everybody. But we have a bravo in the chat, which of course it is fantastic. So any other questions? Okay, so I think we've covered most of mine. I always have a bunch of questions, but I know I was jumping in. I think we addressed this with the last issue, talking about feeling a little bit at a disadvantage when we are brand new in the industry or moving into a new industry, but I think we've addressed that. So any other questions, anybody? You covered everything perfectly.
I love it. No, this is such a fun group to like talk to. And like you said, like moving into a new industry, especially with tech, something I will like tell you of just like taking like, I guess, moving the Wizard of Oz curtain is like, tech is just another industry. Like they expect you to negotiate. They're people, like they're making mistakes. Like I make, you know what I mean? Like remember that like you're talking to people. I feel like so many times when I started like interviewing in tech or like negotiating, I was like, oh my gosh, these are like really smart people. Like they're going to, and then I like got into tech and I'm like, oh, there's just a bunch of nerds. Like we're all just a bunch of nerds. Like they're just humans. Like we're all just like talking and trying to find the best people for roles. So just like be transparent, keep building skills, and like remember that you're just talking to people. Like don't give a shit about titles or whatever people are focused on. Focus on you and focus on like why you want that position, and just ask for what you're worth based on the research that you're doing for the position.
I love it. That's such fantastic advice. We've had that same thing. Women start new jobs and they go, oh yeah, I know a lot more than I thought I did. I'm so much more valuable than I ever imagined I could be, because we have this like mystical persona about this tech company. We go in and we go, oh yeah, it is just a bunch of nerds. And actually I'm smarter than a lot of them.
Yes. 100%. I was like, I found my people. Like there's just, it really is like, it's just a bunch of people that love that space. They love building tech products. They love the innovation of tech. And a lot of times I think in Utah, it can be really hard because the majority of the time you are looking at the same demographic. And so to go in as a woman, you're like, oh, this is like, feels really odd and really jarring sometimes. And it's funny now, the company that I'm at, just yesterday, we had a man join the Zoom call and it was all women. And he was like, this is a great call. He was like, he's like, I've never had this experience before. And I was like, yeah, how does it feel?
All the time. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, how does it feel? And he was like, it's really great. He was like, I love Help Scout. He was like, I get so many different types of opinions and different thought processes. So I am a firm believer that the industry can change, but it has to change with a group like this of applying for the jobs, remembering that you are skilled enough, valuable enough, smart enough. Like, these are all the people that should be in tech.
Fantastic.
Brilliant. So thanks for having me, Robin. I always appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining us. You're getting lots and lots. I hope you're looking at the chat.
Oh, you all are sweet. I appreciate it.
Hey, everybody, I want to invite you to reach out to Kelly on LinkedIn. You can find her. You've got her name right here, and you can find her on LinkedIn. She'd love to connect with you. She's been so great at empowering new young talent. And also, you've got some resources that you'll share with us. I'll be sure to get out to everybody. Even if you're not in Tech Moms, I will send them out to everybody who's joined our meeting or registered for the call today. And also, just a final reminder, Kelly, we'd love to invite you too. We are having an in-person meetup on Monday night. Yeah, it's going to be so fun. So if you're here in Utah, please join us in person. You can find the invitation on our LinkedIn or on our Facebook page. And hopefully we'll see a bunch of you on Monday night. Kelly, thanks so much, everybody. And we will see you next week for our next workshop. Thanks, everybody. I'll go ahead and stop recording.